The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysis as we discuss the most important issues that matter. Hello and welcome to Politics with GA. The governor of Kogi State, Yahaya Bello, has condemned senators and members of the House of Representatives who booed President Muhammadu Buhari when he presented the estimates of the 2019 budget to a joint session of the National Assembly in Abuja. Recall that the presentation of the 8.8 trillion naira estimates was intermittently interrupted with jeers and praise singing as opposition lawmakers and their ruling All Progressive Congress colleagues made to outdo one another in either opposing President Buhari's acclaimed achievements or supporting the president. Governor Bello criticized those who heckled President Buhari, saying that they portray themselves as lacking parental training. He said, first of all, two distinct human beings, a father, a gentleman, a man who has the interests of the country at heart. He went further to say that President Muhammadu Buhari displayed his stuff and those who are self-centered, selfish and bent on destroying this country and the democracy have also shown themselves. He says when you have a child that is not well trained by his parents, he constitutes a menace to the society, and that is exactly what we witnessed at the National Assembly. He said the National Assembly is supposed to be made up of men and women of character and integrity. We have seen those that constitute such class of human beings and those that constitute menace to society in the National Assembly. He went further to say that, but above all, I thank Mr. President for a wonderful presentation of the 2019 budget estimates. We all believe it's going to take Nigeria to the next level by the special grace of God. Recall that the Senate President, Dr. Bukola Saraki, and the Speaker of the House of Representatives, Mr. Yakubu Dogara, tried without success to control the lawmakers who had intensified the jeering after President Buhari ended his speech. The jeering also made it impossible for Dr. Bukola Saraki and the Speaker, Yakubu Dogara, to respond after President Buhari's presentation. The Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC, has urged the Independent Corrupt Practices and Other Related Offences Commission, ICPC, to monitor finances of political parties. The resident electoral commissioner in Oyo State, Mr. Mutiu Agboke, gave the advice today when he and his management paid a courtesy visit to the ICPC commissioner in Oyo State, Mr. Stephen Pimon. Agboke noted that the collaborative efforts of INEC and the Anti-Corruption Agency will curb excesses and other acts flouting electoral laws. He reiterated the commitment of the electoral body in displaying the highest level of transparency, openness and credibility in the conduct of the 2019 general elections. In his remark, Mr. Prima commended the cooperation that had existed between the two commissions. He promised the ICPC in the state would continue to work closely with INEC in order to achieve credible, free and fair elections in 2019. He urged all candidates contesting various seats in the forthcoming general elections not to violate the electoral law, especially as regards finances of their respective political parties. As we draw closer to the 2019 general elections, campaigns are in full swing as candidates are doing their best to get their vision across to the people. No fewer than 30 presidential candidates will be contesting for the highest office in the land, quite unprecedented. I spoke to one of the candidates who is seeking to unseat President Muhammadu Buhari at the polls next year. He says the time has come to build a new Nigeria, a nation that is committed to good governance with the capacity to create the enabling environment for all her citizens and residents to dream, try and succeed in all lands. He goes by the name of Adetokunbo Fela Durotoye. He is the presidential candidate for the Alliance for New Nigeria. Thanks for joining us in Politics with GA, Mr. Fela Durotoye.
It's great to be here. Thank you.
Let's get straight to the business of the day. You were the chosen candidate of the Presidential Aspirants Coming Together, an alliance that collapsed shortly after you emerged as the preferred candidate. Can you please tell us why this alliance failed and what transpired?
Okay, so the first thing is that the alliance didn't fail. I think there were quite a few people who walked away from the table, some before, some after. Well, not some, but some before, one after. And the one who walked away after was Professor Mogalu. But we have to remember that there were 6 other aspirants who stayed behind the consensus candidate, or as it were, which is me. So first of all, it didn't fail because those other people kept their word. They kept the honor of their word. They kept the honor of their agreements, which I would also have kept if I was not the chosen one. So in a way, I think the narrative has always been, as some people have tried to put it for their own convenience, to go out there and say the alliance failed, but it didn't. There were people who kept their word, and simply by walking away and discrediting something that you were part of, that you were part of designing the process, that you signed up to, that you did all of that, and simply because it didn't favor you, I think that's something. So let's talk about the people that stayed. People like Lady Elisha Maide, people like Dr. Thomas Wilson Ikubese, people like Victor Anilaju. There were people who stayed on the table. Those are the heroes of our time. And I keep saying it this way. I believe that history will judge those guys as the people who kept their word, who kept their honor, and who did something that the whole of our generation thought cannot be done.
Now, a while ago, I spoke with the presidential candidate for the Young Progressive Party, Professor Kingsley Mogalu, who was sitting right where you are now. He said the selection process was not transparent, and he said the PACT had no credibility, and he should have emerged as the consensus candidate.
Well, I presume that he would have emerged, or he would have imagined that he should have emerged. If otherwise, he probably would not have stepped in. And I really think that any of the people on the table could have emerged as a consensus candidate. But I think that the things that I would disagree with is that the process was not transparent. He was part of those who designed the process. It was a very simple process. And the process was saying, if not me, who? It's very simple. All right? Yes. So, and if we had a tie, then the people who tied should step out of the room, and the people who were left behind would then vote for those who tied. It's really that simple. And the most important thing that I would like to say was that it was a recorded process. Okay? Not only was it recorded by television, by video camera, but more importantly, it was also administered
So you disagree
by
with him that
absolutely. It was not transparent, I presume, only after he won. He didn't even say that it wasn't transparent whilst we were going through the process. So I think that it was pretty much something that just didn't happen for him. And the only way to be able to justify his continued or walking away from the table is to discredit it, which it's so unfortunate. And I think Nigerians are able to tell that. But like I said, there are videos, there are video cameras, and at the right time, maybe it will come out.
Now let's talk about your aspiration to be the president of Nigeria in 2019. You've run successful businesses and you've been into nation building. Why this time around, and why did you decide to throw your heart into the presidential race?
Well, I think 2 things, that informed my decision to do this. Number one is, over time, we've realized that, no matter how much you do, especially from the side, without necessarily being in government, it's almost as if you're pouring water into a basket. There's no effort that you're putting. As long as the government itself is not working, things don't work. When things don't work,
there's only so much you can do.
So there's so much you can do. So and then you step back and look at it and say to yourself, do the people who go into governance, do they even have a desire to make things work? And obviously it's not. I mean, people like myself who then have spent years doing social impact work, using social enterprises, try and fix education, and these guys are literally, sometimes they actually even deny us the permission to do the things that we need to do to fix the system that they have failed. So in a way, number one, you realize, except you have the reins of authority, you can't do that. The second thing that I know for sure is that in trying to gather a group of good people who would then run at all the levels, you need to be able to ensure that you have not only the authority, but you have the capacity to inspire them. If I was running for president, then people can be inspired, as they have been, to run for Senate, to run for House of Assembly, to run for government.
Political process.
So it's getting that process in, and that for me is what is most important. I've always said it this way: if that was the greatest gift I could give to Nigeria, gathering good people in and helping to create a critical mass, then I've done my job.
If you become president next year, you won't be inheriting loads and loads of problems. If you look at all the indices of human development, we're doing bad. We're in the bottom rung. Nigeria is the third most terrorized country in the world as we speak. We have the highest number of out-of-school kids. Life expectancy is low. What would be your area of priorities? What things do you think would need urgent attention?
So not if, but when we do get the opportunity to lead the government starting May 29, 2019, the 4 key areas we're going to be focusing on to fix Nigeria and make the government work are, number one, and we've created them in headlines, is to say reduce, reform, restructure, and reorient. So those are the 4 key things. And what do I mean by that? Number one, we want to reduce the cost of running governance. There's so much wastage today, and we're taking that money out of the critical areas that can help to improve the quality of human life, human capacity, and all of that. So we're talking about education, we're talking about healthcare, we're talking about roads, housing, low-cost housing, we're talking about agriculture, feeding the people, making sure that no one is hungry, security, ensuring everyone is safe, power, so that people can live well and businesses can grow, and of course infrastructure. So when you think about a lot of what we are today losing through wastage in government, corruption, inefficiencies should be going there. So we need to cut down the wastage, the cost of running government. We need to reduce that. Number 2, we need to reform our government ministries, departments and agencies. We need to reform our parastatals to ensure that they are service-oriented, they're delivering. There's an entire need for culture change, and gratefully, that's what I've done all my consulting life. Oh yes, it is.
I mean, for
but
the entire Nigerian civil
yes.
service.
Oh yes, especially, and it can be done. Okay.
You don't think it's an impossible mission?
Oh, no, of course not, because they're Nigerians and they want Nigeria to work. And how do you know they want Nigeria to work? Civil servants even send their own children outside the country to get an education. Why do they want to do that? Because they want places where things work.
People are stuck in their ways. They're used to doing things a certain
That's
way.
what we've always believed. Even in the corporate, we've handled businesses and organizations and some government agencies, and we've done business transformation and corporate transformation for culture transformation for them that people thought was going to be impossible. But let me quickly just go through. So that's reduce and then reform government agencies. The third one is restructure our economy and make sure, the way I see it, what we need to do now, and this is what we are going to do, is to turn the local governments into what you call industrial hubs, pretty much like the way Obafemi Awolowo envisioned Agbara Estate, Industrial Estate, or Ikeja, or Ogba, And the idea is that we are going to build industrial hubs in every local government area. And what those will enable us to do is to ensure that you can get anything that comes within that local government, get it to that point where it can be processed, packaged, preserved, and ready for market, so whether it's international market.
Country.
So we have to be a producing country, and mineral resources, natural resources are spread all across Nigeria. In doing what we want to do, you're going to see that opportunities are going to abound in every local government, and it's going to happen pretty much at the same time. All right. I give several examples, but one of my favorite is something that has to do with, for instance, gold. And I talk about how gold is found in 11 states across Nigeria, 28 local governments across Nigeria. But one of the local governments that you find gold is Atakumasa East local government, and in a place called Ikmerido, which has 7 gold basins around it. One of those basins has a proven reserve of over 1 million ounces of gold. 1 ounce of gold goes for $1,232. So that's 1.2 billion ounces of gold in Ikmerido alone, which is in Atakumasa East local government. The question
is that?
That's in Osun State.
Osun State.
Yet Osun State has been struggling to pay salaries. Osun State does 800 million naira in 2016 in internally generated revenue. So you ask the question, why is Osun State sitting on literally a pot of gold gold,
yes.
and yet it's not doing much with it. Simply because we have to restructure the way that revenue is reallocated. Currently, anything that you take from beneath the earth belongs to the federal government, at least in Nigeria, and then only 13% of it goes to that state. Nothing necessarily comes back to the community. What we are saying is give 20% to Ikmerido, the community you took something from, give 20% of that revenue that you took back to Atapumasa East.
The derivation
exactly,
from,
and then 20% to Osun State.
Goes to the local
yes, so that now every community is excited to bring out whatever it is that they have.
And people get more creative.
And then, and you make sure that what that money doesn't just go back, throwing it back at the people, you use it to develop infrastructure. So you make sure that you develop roads to the community, power for the community, healthcare for the community, housing, schools for the community, and making sure it's the people within the communities that build it. That way, you see that there are jobs that would abound all across Nigeria. And nobody's having to run to the cities to be able to get opportunities, to be able to get a job, live better, because you're now taking development back to the rural, what we call the rural areas. And for me, so that's reduce, reform, restructure. The last one is reorient the people.
Now, you've mentioned your 4 R's, and we do know that power is not given. You have to do the hard bit, yes, the door-to-door, I'm sure you burnt a lot of jet fuel in your travel across the length and breadth of the country to sell your idea to the people. What is your strategy? The Alliance for New Nigeria, it's quite a new party, and you're going against dinosaurs, if I may use the word in the game, the PDPs and the APCs. How do you intend to, what's your strategy to win votes and to ride on this?
Okay, so
you once said that you'll make money fail in the 2019 elections. We know money is a big deal when it comes to politics in Nigeria, and you don't have any godfathers, and you are not a billionaire yet. So how do you intend to, what's your strategy?
Well, so 2 things, and I'll deal with both of them as quickly as I can as it relates to the strategy for the people and the funding strategy. 2 things. Number 1, our strategy has always been to look at the people who are not involved in the political process and see how do we get them involved in the political process. The statistics are alarming, literally. I mean, 2015, we saw 96 million people above the age of 18, which means 96 million people could have registered to vote, but only 68 million people went ahead as getting their voters' cards. And out of the 68 million that got their voters' cards, you know, with all the structure, with all the vote buying, ballot stuffing, child underage voting, and all of that, the 2 dinosaur parties literally were only able to mobilize 28 million votes, not voters. But let's even assume, for the sake of this short interview, that each vote belonged to a bona fide voter, which it didn't, but let's just assume that. That still means that 40 million people that went as far as getting their voters' cards did not vote in 2015. So in a way, if democracy is a game of, you know, the majority over the minority, then really the government we have today was brought to us by the people who didn't vote. Because 40 million people could have changed the narrative. But the truth was that they didn't believe. You see, for those 40 million people, their currency is not cash. Their currency is belief. And they didn't believe in any of the candidates. And they didn't believe in the promises or the lies that they were telling and all of that. So bottom line is we are having to get to those people. Since 2015, another 12 million people have been added to the age of 18, and another 23 million voters' cards have been issued. So there are 91 million voters' cards have been issued, and our job is to get as many of them to believe and to do something and to get involved. As it relates to funding, again, what you find out is that those who believe give of their funds. Those who don't collect money from the politicians. And I'm saying, and this is the reason why I said money will fail in 2019. In 2019, the election is going to be between the old system of politics that gives money to people to vote and the new system of nation building that gives money to the candidates to run. I am an evidence, and I'm sure that there are several others who have been literally kept going by the donations of the people. And those people are not going to collect 1,000 or 2,000 or 5,000. And the people who, listen, if everybody that collected 4,000 or 5,000 in 2015 still collected it, we still have greater numbers of people who did not collect money then and now have someone to believe in, have something to believe in, and those are the guys that will win.
Quite interesting. Before we begin to wrap up, there's this whole thing about experience, and you touched on it on the platform a while ago. There are those who say, why don't you wait for 2023, the 2019 is too soon. What do you say to people like that?
Well, the first thing I always say is the best time, just quoting a Chinese proverb, the best time to do anything right, and especially plant a tree, is 20 years ago. The next best time is now. Nation building is a process. It's not just an event. It's a journey. And building a new Nigeria is a journey. It might have key milestones, right, including the 2019 elections, but that's a milestone. But the most important thing I always ask to people when they say to me, why don't you wait till 2023? I ask them, are you happy with the way things are in Nigeria today? Most of the time they'll say to me, no. I said, well, do you think Nigeria can be a better country if it was better managed than its way it is? You have good governance. Say yes. I said, good. How did we get here? They say, well, the guys that brought us here are the old politicians, APC, PDP. I said, do the guys who brought us here, do they have the capacity to take us where we're going? They say no. I said, okay, good. So do we need to get new people in with new thinking, new attitude, new systems? Yes. When should we start? They say now. I said, so why should I wait till 2023 when we can start now? This is not just an issue about, oh, will we win an election? And I believe the people who want a new Nigeria will win. I believe that the numbers are large enough. I believe the people who are tired of the status quo will win. And I believe the numbers are large enough. I'm just representing those people. So the chances that we will win are higher than not, okay? But the most important thing is that the best time to start is now, regardless of whatever the outcomes are. And for me, I think that the thing I would like to conclude with, at least on this question, is that if you look at time and cycles, something happens every 20 years in Nigeria. And it started in 1959. December 12, 1959, the first general election, there was something that happened that moved power from the hands of the powerful British into the hands of what you would think of as ordinary Nigerians, the weak, you might even think of. But then maybe that was an incident. And 20 years later, 1979, the powerful military, under the leadership of General Obasanjo, decided of their own free will to move power to the hands of weak civilians, okay? So maybe that's a coincidence, you know. Then 20 years later, 1999, the powerful military again under the General Abdul Salam decided to give power to military in civilian clothes, or prison clothes, almost like to say, you know. And so you see something that is a pattern here. It's no longer a coincidence. Every 20 years, power shifts from the hands of the powerful into the hands of the supposedly weaker. You know, that way thing when you say the race no longer goes to the swift, the battle no longer goes to the strong. And the next 20 years after 2019 is after 1999 is 2019. I believe that the pattern has showed us that power will shift again from the hands of the powerful, military in civilian clothes, into the hands of civilians, and not just civilians, it will be the next generation. I think that we're ready.
The African Action Congress and its presidential candidate, Omoyole Sowore, have kicked against the party's exclusion from the presidential debate scheduled to happen in January next year. Organized by the Nigerian Election Debate Group and the Broadcast Organization of Nigeria. You are one of those who are scheduled to participate in the debate. Number one, do you think the number of candidates chosen is a fair representation? And two, how important are debates? Do they contribute to, do they actually get people to vote?
Okay, so let me answer your second question first. Yes, debates are very important because usually it's that one moment where a lot of people get the opportunity to see, you know, within a very short time, you know, focus time, and hear see the candidates, hear their vision, hear their plans, and then, you know, kind of like connect with whichever candidate that they're going to connect to. And throughout history, political history, debates have been very important in shaping how the people feel about a candidate or not, especially undecided voters. Not necessarily just the base of the candidates. So it's very important. Should there have been more people? I believe yes, but again, hey, the organizers are the ones who understand what it is they're trying to achieve. They have not told us why and how it was that they were able to choose some candidates over others, and I really don't know what that is. But I lent my voice immediately that this was, and I did not only a tweet, but you know, on social media to say, look, I do believe that we should try and include as many people as can be on the debate stage. That we should create as many opportunities for all. But again, hey, people understand what it is. I don't think that the bond debates are going to be the only debates. I believe, you know, Platform is trying to organize another debate. I don't know whether which candidates are going to be invited, but I believe that there will be probably more than one debate. So if one person is not at one, I don't think that necessarily discredits that organization. I don't know why. But look, for me, I think the most important thing is let's keep selling our message to the people. Let's keep getting them out there. You know, we can talk about one particular candidate, but then there are 73 candidates who all feel like they should be heard, that they should be on the debate platform, and you can't. I'm sure that you can't accommodate all 73. So
And finally, the United States government, the international community have said that 2019 elections will be a landmark elections for the history of Nigeria, and whatever happens in Nigeria does shape Africa and the West African sub-region. And a few opposition candidates and parties have expressed doubt in the ability of INEC to be an independent umpire in the elections. They point to case in point, Osun, and where we've had staggered elections in Ekiti State too. Do you have faith in INEC to conduct free and fair elections in 2019? And would you accept the result of the elections if you do not emerge as the president of Nigeria?
I would always accept the results of any process that I believe is free and fair, and if it's not free and fair, I would kick against it probably before the results are announced. If I'm going to boycott because I don't think it's free and fair, I will boycott before then. But once I go through the process, I'm not going to kick against it if the results don't favor me. I would be a good sport and do what it is that is leaders do. Good leaders stay with results after it's been published, and not walk away after. Okay. Now, having said that, for me, I think that INEC has an opportunity to get it right. They obviously, as we saw, and the international community were there as observers, there were issues with Osun State elections, and the world has seen that. And I think the world is putting INEC under a huge amount of pressure. INEC constantly always says, and when they have meetings and they have press releases about these things, they constantly talk about what they are doing to make sure that Osun does not happen again. And that's the best we can work with, at least for now. I will not cry foul about something that happened in Osun as a way of discrediting what is likely to happen in February. What we will do is to be able to constantly put INEC under check and under pressure and work with them to say whatever it is that can be done, we must do, because the future of Nigeria is at stake. I don't think Nigeria's elections in 2019 are mere elections. I think it's going to be the deciding factor as to where the future of Nigeria goes. I think that it's a choice between the old Nigeria that has been brought to us by old politicians, which we are not happy with, and a choice between a new Nigeria that can be brought to us by a new generation of nation builders that will become a nation that we're proud of, a nation where there will be opportunities for everyone to pursue their happiness and to achieve their dreams and to have collective success, not just individual success as we have been. A united nation, not a divided nation as we've been given. And a nation where the son of a nobody can become a somebody without knowing anybody, because the systems work. And the systems work because government is committed to making the systems work. A place where everyone will find jobs and find fulfillment. And that's the kind of nation that we can be. It's a nation we are blessed enough to be. And for me, that's the most important thing. So 2019 is not a decision between APC or PDP. It's a decision between the old Nigeria, old politicians, and a new Nigeria by a new generation of nation builders. And I believe that there are more Nigerians that are tired of the old and are ready for the new. And that would be the pleasant surprise in 2019.
On that note, I'd like to say it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, Mr. Fela Durotoye, presidential candidate, Alliance for New Nigeria. Thanks for joining us on Politics with
Always
GA.
great to be with you. Thank you.
Thanks for watching Politics with GA, and happy holidays. I'm Benga Aborowa. The political decisions people make will affect many lives. Many people see politics as the government and the laws being made. While that is true, it's way more complicated than that.
I don't know what type of procedure is this.
Some of you may be aspiring to positions of leadership in the political arena.
And I accepted full responsibility.
But the question is, why do you want to lead?
It has everything to do with you. Every law that is made will impact many. Sometimes the decisions do affect people negatively. Therefore, it's very important to note that every vote that you cast will either break or make people. Politics with GA brings you the latest political news as well as insight and analysis as we discuss the most important issues that matter.